The testimony of the Titanic's fourth officer, Joseph Groves Boxhall, gave birth to a growing scandal that another ship, the Californian, may have been in close proximity to the Titanic, but had refused to come to her assistance.
Where do you reside?
Hull, England.
How old are you?
28 years, sir.
What experience have you had in marine employment?
13 years experience at sea.
In what capacity have you served?
As junior officer, ranking as 5th and 6th officer and 3rd officer, and then as 4th officer on the last ship.
When was this duty assigned to you?
When the Titanic left Belfast.
Who was the first officer?
Mr. Murdoch.
What were his duties?
His duties were as officer of the watch, to keep a lookout for the ship, and to see that the junior officers did whatever he required to carry out the captain's orders.
Was it part of his duty to have drills and inspections?
No, the captain arranged all the drills and inspections.
Of what did they consist?
The crew were mustered and the names were called. The boats were lowered in the presence of the Board of Trade Surveyors.
When you say boats, you refer to lifeboats?
The lifeboats were lowered in the presence of the Board of Trade Surveyors.
Can you recall just who was present at that inspection?
The captain, all of the officers, the Marine Superintendent and the Board of Trade Surveyors, and the Board of Trade Doctor.
Were all the lifeboats lowered?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because they do not require all of the boats to be lowered, so far as I know.
How many lifeboats were lowered?
2 boats were lowered, I believe.
How many people, under ordinary circumstances, would a lifeboat of the size carried on the Titanic carry in such weather as you experienced?
They were supposed to carry 65 persons.
Why do you say they were supposed to carry 65?
The Board of Trade testified to that.
Did you know you were in the vicinity of icebergs that night?
No. I knew we had information, but they did not apprise me that evening of it.
When did they appraise you?
The captain mentioned it. I don't know whether it was the day before or 2 days before. He gave me some positions of icebergs, which I put onto the chart.
Did the captain inform you that the California had wired the Titanic that they were in the vicinity of icebergs?
No. The captain gave me some wireless messages from Southampton, I think, that we had before we had sailed, and asked me to put these positions onto the chart.
Where were you when the collision took place?
I was approaching the bridge.
Did you know what had occurred?
No, not at all. I heard the 6th officer say what it was.
What did he say that it was?
He said that we had struck an iceberg.
Was there any evidence of ice on the decks, to your knowledge, after the collision?
Just a little on the lower deck. On the open deck I saw a little, not much.
Do you know whether it struck the bow squarely?
It seemed to me to strike the bluff of the bow.
In ordinary parlance, would it be a glancing blow?
A glancing blow. It didn't seem to be very serious. I did not take it seriously.
What, if anything, was said by the captain?
Yes, the captain said, "What have we struck?" Mr. Murdoch, the first officer, said, "We have struck an iceberg."
Then what was said?
Mr. Murdoch followed on to say, "I put her hard a starboard and ran the engine full astern, but it was too close. She hit."
What else did he say?
We all walked out to the corner of the bridge then to look at the iceberg.
The captain?
The captain, the first officer, and myself.
Did you see?
I was not very sure of seeing it. It seemed to be just a small black mess, not rising very high out of the water, just a little on the starboard quarter.
After the signals were turned in, what was done?
I went down below into the lower steerage as far as I could possibly get without getting into the cargo portion of the ship, and inspected all the decks as I came up in the vicinity of where I thought that she had struck.
What did you find?
I found no damage. I found no indication to show that the ship had damaged herself.
Then where did you go?
Then I went to the bridge and reported to the captain that I couldn't see any damage.
What did the captain say?
He said, "Go down and find the carpenter and get him to sound the ship."
What did you say to him?
I said that the captain wants you to sound the ship. He said that the ship is making water, and went onto the bridge to the captain.
What did he say?
He said, "All right," and then the order came out for the boats.
You mean the order was given to man or lowered the lifeboats?
To clear the lifeboats.
What did you do after you left the operator's room?
I went around the decks, assisting to clear the decks and to send distress signals off.
What do you mean by clearing the decks?
Clearing the boats, I should say.
At that time, were there passengers on these decks?
Yes.
Men and women?
Men and women, yes, coming up.
What were they doing?
I was too busy to take notice, as a matter of fact.
Did they have life preservers on or life belts?
Yes, I think all of them had life preservers that I saw.
I want to get your best information on it.
I was around the bridge most of the time sending distress signals and endeavoring to signal a ship that was ahead of us.
Taking signals from the captain?
No, distress signals. Rockets.
You remained on the upper deck, where the lifeboats were?
On the upper deck where the lifeboats were, assisting in lowering these lifeboats, but my attention until the time I left the ship was mostly taken up with sending off distress rockets and trying to signal a ship that was almost ahead of us.
How far ahead of you?
It's hard to say. I saw his masthead lights and I saw his side light.
Coming toward you?
Coming towards us.
Do you know anything about what boat that was?
No, sir.
Have you had any information since about it?
None whatever.
You say you fired these rockets and otherwise attempted to signal her?
Yes, sir. She got close enough, as I thought, to read our Morse signal, and I signaled to her. I told her to come at once, that we were sinking. I told the captain about the ship, and he was with me most of the time when we were signaling.
Did he also see it?
Yes, sir.
And did you get any reply?
I cannot say that I saw any reply. Some people saw she replied to our rockets and our signals, but I did not see them.
Did you see any signals from the ship at all?
No, I cannot say I saw any signals, except for her ordinary steaming light. Some people say they saw signals, but I could not.
From what you saw of that vessel, how far would you think she was from the Titanic?
Should say approximately the ship would be about 5 miles.
You busied yourself with the Morse signals?
Yes, sir.
Did they continue up to the time you assisted in clearing the lifeboats?
I would signal with Morse and then go ahead and send off a rocket, and then go back and have a look at the ship until I was finally sent away.
How were the rockets exploded?
The rockets are exploded by firing lanyard. They go right up into the air and then they throw stars.
Was the failure to arouse the attention of the ship due to any impartial success of these signals?
Not at all, sir.